Hi, class. Join me as we explore the Common English Bible, the human translation. The year 2011 made impressive strides in an array of industries. Technology features were enhanced, the iPhone 4 integrated Siri, and a tech savvy app, TripLingo, revolutionized life for so many. TripLingo's ingenious mechanism to help people learn the language the way it's really spoken through colloquial translation has been a game changer in cultural exchange. Siri changed the way we live our lives, improving how we can take notes, set alarms, and even serve as the precursor to Apple products to come, including Apple TV. Not only did the evolution of the iPhone make life easier and more comfortable, but the emergence of the Common English Bible translation had a similar objective. The Committee of the Common English Bible Translation, as written in its introduction, says it was produced out of a concern for accuracy and accessibility in one translation that the typical reader or worshiper would be able to understand. The CEB translation endeavored to provide a biblical reading that was at a comfortable seventh grade reading level. In this presentation, I will discuss the content, comparison, controversy, and contributions of this modern contemporary translation. The Holy Bible has become the most read and purchased book of all time, according to reports from Business Insider. With this notable feat, the question remains, is there a need for yet another translation? As Brake was said, why continue to make more translations? The Common English Bible Committee was inclined to answer this question as they presented this uniquely crafted modern linguistic translation that made some bold changes, and we will discuss those a little later. The CEB asserted that since the English language is perpetually changing and always in flux, there needs to be a biblical translation that speaks to the people of this time. Many of them asserting that new translations aid in updating ever developing language expression. Ironically, many pin the CEB as being uncommon and that it is the newest translation by the largest number of biblical scholars and church leaders in words 21st century readers use every day, aligning academic rigor with modern understandability, proven through extensive affirmation with and acting on feedback from hundreds of readers. It has an impressive repertoire of individuals comprised of 120 biblical scholars. These biblical scholars consist of 24 denominations in American, African, Asian, European, and Latino communities, representing such academic institutions as Asbury Theological Seminary, Azusa Pacific University, Bethel Seminary, Denver Seminary, Princeton, Princeton Theological Seminary, Seattle Pacific University, Wheaton College, Yale University, and many others. Pretty you all guess who I'm talking about? Yes. Dr. DeClassy Welford, our very own professor, wrote a commentary on the book of Proverbs in the Common English Study Bible. In addition to this repertoire of individuals, they underwent a strenuous process to meticulously translate the Bible into English directly from the original Hebrew, Aramaic, and Greek texts. In an effort to increase credibility, the translators used the following biblical sources as a basis for the CEB New Testament: the Nesson Arlen Greek New Testament, coupled with the Old Testament various editions of the Masoretic text, Biblia Hebraica Septuagintica. Please excuse the pronunciation. I am a Southern Belle. The Biblia Hebraica Quinta, the Dead Sea Scrolls, and the Septuagint. Not to mention, more than 500 readers and 77 groups field tested this translation. Every verse was read out loud in the reading groups where potentially confusing passages were identified. If a confusing passage was identified, the translators reworked and reworded that passage to bring clarity while maintaining the meaning from the original languages. In essence, the CEB committee worked extremely hard to make this a diverse project that included both translators, scholars, and the everyday. The CEB has been classified as being a denomination neutral Bible, sponsored by the Common English Bible Committee, an alliance of 5 publishers that serve the general market, as well as the Disciples of Christ, Presbyterian Church, Episcopal Church, United Church of Christ, and United Methodist Church. This array of denominations has deemed it to be likely the largest cross-denominations translation project in recent memory. The CEB eventually published the New Testament 2010, and with the complete Bible translation being published in 2011 with the Old Testament and the availability of the Apocrypha. Now that we have discussed the overall content, let's take a look back and review the criteria of translation as presented by Dr. Donna Brake in the Visual History of the Bible on page 279. The criteria for judging a translation is as follows. 1. Is it efficient in translation? Does it comprehend the original intent? Is there equivalence of response? Does it achieve good English style in the various literary genres, metaphors, and figures of speech? Does it allow for interpretive ambiguities, theological difficulties, accuracy of meaning, and cultural peculiarities? As we analyze and reflect on the criteria for judging a translation, let's take a look and read a very familiar passage that is one of the foundational frameworks of our beliefs. Genesis 1 verses 1 through 2 in the CEB reads, When God began to create the heavens and the earth was without shape or form. It was dark over the deep sea, and God's wind swept over the waters. This is a sharp contrast to our most familiar hearing. In the beginning, when God created the heavens and the earth. As a reader, how did this affect your understanding of the creation? Did this change your perspective about this narrative? Did it achieve the aforementioned criteria? Let's keep moving as we discuss the CEB in comparison to other Bible translations. In general, in comparison with the NIV, the CEB utilizes gender inclusive language, incorporating brothers and sisters instead of brothers throughout. The translator suggests that this is an accurate translation because countless times throughout the Bible, brothers means everyone instead of denoting the male sex. Although the CB is comparable in reading level to the NIV, the CEB starts over fresh with Hebrew and Greek. Instead of trying to preserve the the King James Version, aka KJV, vocabulary that is still very strong in the NIV and especially ESV. Let's take a quick glance of this chart that compares CEB to other translations. Take time to note the similarities but also the distinct differences. The CEB is classified as a hybrid translation similar to its cohort, the Holman Christian Standard Bible. However, the CEB had more translators as well as utilizing more historical resources of translation. In this instance, the CEB is more comparable to the New American Standard Bible using some of the same resources for translation. It's interesting to see these comparisons, right? As we have analyzed the comparison, do you think CEB stands out as a credible or reliable source? Are you ready for this next contrast? Well, here it goes. In the CEB, Adam is noted as human until Eve appears in Genesis 2 and 23. At that point, the Bible translation reads, "The human said, this one finally is bone from my bones and flesh from my flesh. She will be called a woman because a man from a man she was taken." Let me read that again. The human said, "This one finally is born from my bones and flesh from my flesh. She will be called a woman because from a man she was taken." Let's take a minute to reflect. Does this passage read in this way suggest that Adam became alive or identifiable upon Eve's inception? How does this change the interpretation of our current understanding of gender roles and the help me theology? For me, as a millennial female, I must admit, I felt quite empowered by the text. I interpreted that Adam needed Eve to even become complete. But hey, that is a discussion for another day in modern feminist theology. Smile. The CB aim was to use more natural wording, which has produced some controversy about this text. One of the most controversial issues include the CEB reference as Jesus as human being and the human one instead of Son of Man. Let's take a look at Matthew 9, verse 6. The CEB reads, "But so you will know that the human one has authority on the earth to forgive sins, he said to the man who was paralyzed, 'Get up, take your cot, and go home.'" This sounds different from what we're normally used to hearing. The NIV reads, "But I want you to know that the Son of Man has authority on earth to forgive sins. So he said to the paralyzed man, 'Get up, take your mat, and go home.'" And finally, the KJV reads, "But that ye may know that the Son of Man have power on earth to forgive sins. Then said he to the sick of the palsy, Arise, take." Despite ongoing criticism on word choice, the criticism did not affect the sales of the New Modern Contemporary Version, as the CEB surpassed the published expectations and was reprinted twice within weeks of its initial run, and sales to date include more than 500,000 copies sold worldwide. In addition, the CEB has contributed to not just crossing denominations, but has a wide appeal across generations. The CEB is steadily expanding as a distinct genre in translations, producing Study Bible for Students, Deep Blue Kids Compass Bible, a Prayer Bible, the CEB Storytellers Bible, Student Bible for United Methodist Confirmation, a Sing and Make Music Bible, Concordance Bible, and even limited editions of a Pew Bible. In essence, I think the best way to utilize this translation is to remember how Brake explains translation. Whatever translation you decide to use, be sure it is one you can read with understanding, memorize with ease, and obey with faith. The CEB has made a tremendous impact on the Christian community. Even Fuller Theological Seminary has adopted this translation as the official Bible for school use. As we see language ever evolving and the demand of modern biblical translations, CEB has a great chance of becoming the future precedent for translations. Millennials see it as an effective tool to help them embrace and understand the Christian journey. As we conclude, let's take a look at this comprehensive survey conducted by Nashville based Lifeway Research. After surveying a total of 2,000 Bible sales in the last few years, the 81% of individuals speaks volumes. More people have opted to purchase biblical translations